Hey, Nic Peterson here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why people have so much difficulty learning and retaining information and then applying it. Okay, so from an abstract theory, why are people not learning things as fast as they'd like to? And from a practical application point, we'll kind of bring it down to what you can do. Because without the practical application, who cares, right? And this ties directly into what we're talking about. People are having a hard time determining the difference between abstract theory and practical application, and that manifests in a few ways. And we're going to talk about it. Okay, because I'm going to kind of give you the abstract theory, the fancy stuff that you can repeat and maybe sound smart, like you know what you're talking about, but it's not going to help you in the real world. And then we're going to distill it down to what you do in the real world to be a productive human being, because that's kind of important, right? So understand that we can't retain all of the information. We don't have the bandwidth, and it's coming at us all the time. Right? Like my air conditioner just kicked on. That's information. I just took it in. I'm going to forget about it. I don't need to remember that my air conditioner kicked on while I was filming this video. And this is happening all of the time. And we just take it for granted that we are always getting information. Right? And we've trained ourselves to recognize certain things. So if we're in the park and somebody yells, hey, probably going to ignore it unless it's really obnoxious. Or, if somebody in the park says, hey, mom, I'm definitely going to ignore it. But a whole bunch of moms are going to turn around. They've been trained to recognize that information. Somebody says, hey, Nick. Oh, now I'm paying attention, right? So we can train ourselves as to what to pay attention to. Okay? So this information is coming from all over. One of the things you have to do is actively say, what kind of information do I want to pick up? And do it consciously until it becomes subconscious. Okay, so you want to become kind of unconsciously competent at learning stuff, just picking up information. People that have been in the fire department, police department, military, you'll notice they always look up. Where are the sprinklers? Where are the exits? And they facing the door. Okay, that is trained to pick up information. The brain is highly associative. Okay, so one of the things you can do that I talk about is focus, deep work. Okay, and going back to this highly associative brain, that means when you're working, you have a dedicated workspace. It is going to accelerate your learning. It's going to cue your brain to learn. Oh, I know this desk. I know this lamp. Time to learn. Not always possible, which is why I actually keep a lamp in all my rooms. When the lamp is on, I'm working. When the lamp's off, I'm not. That's how my brain helps associate time to soak stuff in. And right now, we're not soaking stuff in, right? There has to be some balance. So you gotta train yourself to not diffuse attention. Deep work, okay? So, 1, train yourself to pick up the information that you need to pick up. 2, eliminate that diffused attention, okay? Focus. You diffuse later, that's going to help you make connections. But for now, you have to have something that cues your brain. It's time to learn to retain information. Okay? 3, you have to be able to tell the difference between recognition and recall. When you highlight something, I got a book right here, it's highlighted. When you highlight something, very, very dangerous territory because you trick yourself into thinking you've learned it. So when you go over it, again, you say, oh yeah, that's right, I remember this quote, because you recognize it. But if you are asked to recall it from deep down in conversation, if you cannot recall it, you haven't remembered it. So people are having a hard time remembering things because they're getting recall and recognition confused, and they think that recognizing something means they have learned it. And it doesn't. It means you can recognize it, but you can't recall it from deep down, which means you haven't really learned it. Okay? And this kind of ties into, you also have to be able to tell the difference between facts and details. Between facts, details, same thing, and concepts and principles. right? This just means that 1937 is a fact. It's a date. You have to memorize that. You can come up with mnemonics and all kinds of things, but there are things you have to memorize. But if you memorize regression toward the mean, which is a mental model, it's a concept, you haven't actually learned that concept until you know what it means and you can apply it to different contexts. So you have to be on the lookout for the difference between facts and concepts, details and mental models. Details and facts you remember. Okay, you have to remember those. You can use tools, rhymes, mnemonics, whatever. But concepts are something you have to be able to apply, right? So let's say, okay, the law of large numbers, which is simply a mental model that explains that if you want to find out, let's say, how tall the average man is, the more men you include into the study, the more accurate that average is going to be, the more it's going to represent the population, right? So the larger the number, the more accurate the sample. You have to know that and be able to apply it to many, many different things to actually have learned the concept. Okay, so it comes down to, do you know the difference between recognition and recall? Recognizing something is good, but if you can't recall it in any situation, it's not a useful tool. You haven't really remembered or learned anything. And if you don't know how to apply concepts to your life and your client's life and your wife's life and your friend's life, then what have you really learned? You've learned how to repeat these words, but you have not learned the concept. Okay, and we talk about it all the time, like, I don't really care if you can name every muscle in the body, but to be effective in working out, training, you have to know what they do. Okay, naming them all would be a fact, to be detail. The concept of muscles lengthen and shorten, right, is the concept. Do you understand that? Because if you do, you can reason through from the ground up. So this is the big reason why people are having a hard time retaining information. They mistake recognition for recall, or recognition for the ability to recall, and they cannot tell the difference between details and concepts. So when you are reading, listening, writing, take something, say, okay, this happened in 2001. Can I apply that to other things? No, that's a fact. Regression toward the mean. A deviation, a long deviation from an average, is generally going to result in the next deviation being closer to the average, right? This is regression toward the mean. What does that mean for my calories? What does that mean for my business? What does that mean for anything? What time my husband gets home, right? It's applicable across the board. And once you can understand how to explain it in different contexts, you've actually learned a thing. And that's the whole point, right? Learn something to be useful. So I'll just recap real quick. People are not retaining information because it's everywhere. They are not training themselves to look for the information they need. But we've done it, right? When somebody yells your name, you look. The attention is diffused. They don't have dedicated workspaces to cue their brain to absorb. Super important. Can't tell the difference between recognition and recall. And can't tell the difference between concepts and details. So start working on those things, ask yourself those questions, and once you know that, hey, I can apply this in different areas of life, you've learned it. And until you can do that, you haven't. Hope you guys realize you just got hit with some really powerful and pragmatic stuff. Don't you think? I do. And if you agree, hit the thumbs up button below and like the video. Let me know in the comments what other videos you want to see, what you want me to expand upon, and what questions you have. And remember, all of this stuff is only as powerful as the actions you take in your execution, the practical applications you can derive from it. So let's see how quickly and effectively and efficiently you can master the things to come. You're going to get information here that's going to help you on your journey that you will not find anywhere else. So be sure to subscribe. You don't want to miss one of these videos.